Welcome to Master the Science of Miracles, where we will explore the ancient science of transforming your ideas into your physical reality. Join us on a thrilling adventure that pushes beyond the limits of conventional beliefs about what it truly means to be human, as we unravel the truth about how powerful you really are. In each episode, we will discover the elements of the reliable, repeatable, step-by-step process for making the miraculous and ordinary part of your life. This is your portal to the extraordinary. So let the adventure begin. And now, here's your host, Ron Matthews.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that last episode. That was one of the ones that is actually something you can do on your own. Remember, we talked about how you can use things like kinesiology, muscle testing, and the use of the pendulum to interrogate your subconscious, to find out what is causing me to not be able to complete this process of sending energy, the energy of my multisensory thought form, through my subconscious self to my transcendent self. Once you have identified what it is, then you can start to do something about it. What I'm going to show you today is a component of a process I call the personal demon demolisher. Now, when I say demon, I'm talking about is those demons like self-doubt, fear, anger, unworthiness, guilt is a big one. And many times these non-resourceful emotional states are programmed into us during childhood without us even realizing it. Remember, in a previous episode, I've said that from birth until about 14 years, children live in a hypnagogic state. And what that means is that anything they're exposed to, anything they hear from their parents, their teachers, the television, social media, goes in very, very deeply, which is why childhood trauma is so difficult to deal with, because it's gone in when the child was in a hypnagogic state, in a hypnotic state, if you will. So those are some of the demons: fear, guilt, envy, anger, unworthiness. So many times as children, we're told that, oh, people like us don't do that. We aren't rich like those people are. Well, that's been programmed into that child. That's become a personal demon. And when, as an adult, a person resolves, this is what I desire. This is my multisensory thought form. As you begin to move into that, using the process I told you, remember the movie theater process. If your multisensory thought form of your desired outcome bumps up against your personal values that were programmed into you, you're going to experience some form of cognitive dissonance. So I'm going to show you two ways actually, to clear those things. And they're both energy-based. And by energy, I mean, I'm talking about energy in terms of things like the energy that acupuncturists talk about or energy healers talk about. It's the universal life force energy that we started developing in the second episode, when I taught you how to focus on this point just below your navel, 3 fingers width below the lower edge of your navel. Breathe into your tummy as though you're breathing into that point, and focus on that point with your mind. The process of doing that begins to build up this excess charge of this universal life force energy, what the people in Tai Chi and Chinese martial arts call Qi, what yogis and yoginis call prana. It's known as mana by as many other names as there are people on the earth. It's all the same energy. So when we experience this cognitive dissonance, it actually expresses in our energy system. So the first process I'm going to show you is a process of holding a class of points in your head called neurovascular points. These are points that were discovered in the 1930s by a chiropractor by the name of Terence Bennett. They used to be called Bennett reflexes. What Dr. Bennett discovered was that when you touch and hold certain parts of your body, two of which I'm going to show you right now, you actually affect a change in the blood flow in your body. So the first points we're going to look at are these points right in front of the top of the opening of your ear on both sides. And to hold them, just take your thumbs and put them there. Now, if you'd like, this is not mandatory, but if you'd like, if you're with someone in your room, turn to that person and go blah, 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 like that. Or you can look in the mirror and do it to yourself. Either way is fine. Then take your fingers and place them on this part of your forehead, right above the center of your eyes. If you rub your head like this, you kind of feel this sort of bulbous protrusion in your skull. It's called the main frontal eminence. And it's where the main frontal neurovascular points are located. Now, let's go to the scenario I just described. You're trying to send your thought form to your transcendent self on this stream of energy, and it stops. The door closes. Something's happened. You use the process I showed you of using the pendulum or using energy testing, and you identify which demon it is. And by the way, those things I just described, fear, guilt, anger, jealousy, unworthiness, those are the main ones. There are many others, and there are combinations of them. And I'm sure that you can think about this, and you can probably figure out a few of your own too, but those are the main ones. Guilt is a biggie. So once you have used your pendulum, or you've used energy testing, muscle testing, to identify what the problem is, what is the personal demon I need to demolish, then start by focusing on it. If it's guilt, I'm going to focus on the guilt. I'm going to put my thumbs here. I'm going to put my fingers here. I'm going to take a few deep breaths and relax as I focus on this personal demon, guilt, unworthiness, whatever. And as you're breathing, notice how you enter a relaxation state. And you may also notice that your relationship to whatever that non-resourceful emotion is changes. And here's why it changes. When you experience cognitive dissonance, the blood in your brain flows out of the frontal cortex, which is the part that makes us human, and it flows into a part of the central brain called the amygdala. And the amygdala is where fight and flight lives. So now, when you experience this cognitive dissonance, this anxiety, because you violated a value you didn't even know you had, your brain goes into flight and fight mode. That means that the blood has gone to the amygdala. When you hold these points the way I just showed you, you cause the blood to flow out of the amygdala and back into the frontal cortex. And right away, that in itself may be enough to go back to the process of sending your multisensory thought form to your transcendent self. Now, if it's not, if you find that you're still having some issue, you can use a process that's very well known called the emotional freedom technique. It's also known as tapping. If you Google emotional freedom technique, or EFT for short, you'll get about 1 million hits. What I'm going to show you is a basic version of this, and I'm going to have to kind of do it carefully because I'm wearing a microphone right here. I can't thump on this part of my body. What EFT or tapping is a method for us to clear the energy of whatever non-resourceful emotion we're experiencing. And so the first part of the process is to resolve what psychologists call psychological reversal or secondary gain. What that means is, in the case of, and this is all happening at the subconscious level, so you are not even consciously aware of it, hence the name subconscious. Your subconscious may be hanging on to this idea of guilt or shame or whatever because it feels it needs to. So we're going to start by poking around, use your two fingers, and you will find a spot that is sore, someplace in your chest, or over here where the front part of your shoulder, your frontal deltoid, joins your chest. There's a crease right here. If you massage in there, it's going to be sore. It's sore because these points are called neurolymphatic reflex points. You don't need to know that, but you'll find these points that are sore when you rub them. So to start the process, I'm going to rub these sore points. I'm going to repeat this 3 times. Even though I have, state this problem, I deeply and completely love, accept, appreciate, and forgive myself. So let's say it's guilt, because guilt is such a big factor in being able to change your reality. You may start by saying, even though I have this guilt about wanting to be making $500,000 a year selling my orchids or whatever it is your thing is, I deeply and completely love, accept, appreciate, and forgive myself. And 2 more times, even though I have this guilt, I deeply and completely love, accept, appreciate, and forgive myself. And once more, even though I have this guilt, I deeply and completely love, accept, appreciate, and forgive myself. Now I'm ready to go through the tapping points. The tapping points are crown of the head, the inner eyebrows right here. The inner eyebrow, you can do it with 2 hands or with 1 hand. Do it with 1. Then out here at the corner of your eyes, use these 2 fingers and tap right here. The reason is because this point here, right at the edge of your eye, is a point on the gallbladder meridian. And this point where your middle finger is hitting is the end point of a very important meridian, which has to do with stress. It's called triple warmer. So it's tap here, and I'm going to tap about 8 or 10 times, and I'm going to repeat a reminder phrase. So if my issue is guilt, I have this guilt. I have this guilt. I have this guilt. I have this guilt. And go through the whole process. I have this guilt. I have this guilt. Under eyes, I have this guilt. I have this guilt. Then between your nose and your upper lip, I have this guilt. I have this guilt. And then between your lower lip and your chin, I have this guilt. I have this guilt. And now, right here at the top of your sternum, is an area, is a notch here called the suprasternal notch. If I go out 2 thumb widths from the center out to here, I'm going to tap on both of those points. I've got a microphone here, so I can't tap very hard. I'm going to tap both of those points and say, I have this guilt. I have this guilt. Then I'm going to put my hand like this right in front of my solar plexus and tap on the edge of my hand. I have this guilt. I have this guilt. Other side, I have this guilt. I have this guilt. I'm going to go down right where I'm standing right now. My middle fingers touch my thigh. That point is a point we want to tap on, but to do it, you're going to bend your knees a little bit and thump. I have this guilt. I have this guilt. That's one complete round. Now there's more to this I'm going to show here, but in most cases, that will wipe it out. Now, what may happen if you start with EFT? If you identify that this is guilt or this is shame. I'm ashamed because I want to achieve something that my parents may have told me with the purest intention. This is not something good people do. Good people don't get rich, or something like that. There are as many dysfunctional programmings from our parents and our teachers than there are stars in the sky, and they aren't done maliciously in most cases. There's just, that is their upbringing too. So if you start using EFT as your first line of defense in this process, and you find that it gets worse, the anxiety gets worse, then stop and go and hold these points first until that level of anxiety comes down, and you can rate it. Before you begin the process, you can say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, where is my anxiety about this guilt or this shame or this fear or this anger, whatever it is? Write it down. So it's a scale of 1 to 10, it's an 8. Then hold your neurovasculars for 10 breaths, 5 or 10 breaths. Nice, long, slow, deep breaths. And focus on whatever the emotion is. I've got this fear, I've got this anxiety over this fear. And as it begins to ease, then re-rate it. If it's gone from a 10 to a 5, that's good. Now you're starting at a 5 and you say, I have this guilt, and go through the whole process. I went through this kind of fast. So what I will do is, if you send an email to Ron at masterthescienceofmiracles.com, Master the Science of Miracles is all one word. Ron, R-O-N, at masterthescienceofmiracles.com. Send me an email and I will send you a graphic image of all these points I've talked about today. Is that fair? So to review, we have identified something which is preventing us from being able to freely send energy to carry our multi-sensory thought form to our high self. We talked about that before. When you step into your video and you love the whole process. This is my life, my new life as it's going to be when I've achieved my desired outcome. I'm the star of the movie. That is how you send the energy to, or the thought form, to your high self, your transcendent self, is by creating this reality. When you feel some kind of anxiety or some kind of cognitive dissonance, then stop, use the pendulum to identify what it is, and then use this part of the demon demolisher I just showed you to clear it, and then go back and do it again. And everything should be right as rain. Is that fair? Go like this with your head. Thank you. All right. I hope you've enjoyed watching this process as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. And until next time, make miracles an ordinary part of your life. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.